investment banking firm, and one of the major areas of our work is actually technology. We've been involved in fundraising like Ola and Lagarity in the past. We also do a lot of M&A work in this area. Generally, we get involved with Series A, Series B, those kind of deal sizes. And I am also a venture partner with Rise, looking at deals which are pre-Series A, angel level deals, etc. I have an interest across the whole gamut. Unfortunately, as a business, I can't do too much of angel level deals or early stage deals, which is pretty appropriate as a starting point to tell you before we get into this discussion. So we'll cover more about all that in a few minutes. But over to you guys. Introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Aditya. In the context of the topic today, which is fundraising, the first time I started up, which was 2006, there were not that many funds around or angels around. So I ended up taking money from a large corporation called TCS, and I became an entrepreneur in residence. So I could probably today talk about kind of how that works and pros and cons of that. I also ended up starting a not-for-profit company called Head Start Network Foundation. We run events called Startup Saturday. Rahul is here, he organizes them in Bombay. So we again kind of ended up financing that in a very different way. Right now I run SwitchMe. To begin with, we said, hey, we want to kind of finance it through my own money, look at revenue as a source of funding rather than kind of looking at VC. Today we are funded by, let's say, early stage micro VC plus some angels. And why I changed my decision and why I ended up kind of raising that. So we raised a convertible round with them. So again, kind of talk about that. And in my capacity as kind of Head Start and mentoring to a number of other startups, I kind of help people think through same kind of question that, okay, what is the right kind of funding for me? So again, from all these kind of perspectives, I can talk about what is relevant. So shoot your questions and we'll probably tackle that.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Anurag. I'm the co-founder of Honest Analytics. We are a big data analytics product company. We focus on building predictive analytics products for insurance and banking sectors. Just to give you a little bit on my background, this is my second venture. First venture was in 2001. At the time, of course, never understood what funding is at all. So ran the company successfully, and then of course sold it in 2006 to another IT services company. So this is the second round, and this time around we've done it quite differently. It started off with our own money. Thankfully we had a little, which we all exhausted. Then we went to friends and family, and that also we exhausted. And then of course we raised recently we raised a few months back on a crowdfunding platform called Let's Venture. Yeah, it was a very different experience, something we had never done or even heard before we tried it. So I'm happy to share my experience and see if any of you guys can leverage from it. That money we haven't run out of yet. So thankfully we are still here. But yeah, we're growing quite well, and we're happy to share any experience.
The interesting part is that you're in a tech-enabled services business, right? So, did you really need to raise money? I mean, could you not have managed to fund your growth through your own cash flows?
So that's exactly what we thought. So I put in my own money to begin with to kind of get the original one with the technology. Very quickly we realized that we thought that local market would be enough, but turns out that the market is more national than that we thought. So to kind of grow up faster, we need to raise money. So do I need money to run SwitchMe? No. Do I need money to expand across, to kind of invest aggressively in technology? Yeah. So I need money more to kind of change gears and move forward. But the point that you make about revenue, I think that's something that any entrepreneur should really look at. I mean, fundamentally, revenue is the prime source of funding. I mean, I can keep on raising money, but in the end, rounds get bigger, but in the end, the business has to kind of make sense and the revenues have to kind of sustain that. And the earlier it happens, the better it is. And there are great examples of companies which have done just that. For example, recently I was reading the biography of Bill Gates. Microsoft was largely financed through revenue. It didn't really need to raise VC funding. And I think that's something that a lot of us forget, but that's what we got to focus on.
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting point. And this is really a question to both of you or either of you actually, is that, now obviously there is a lot of money going around and there's a mentality, desire also to invest, which is very good. But earlier people used to do it by basically managing it otherwise, and one of the biggest sources were your own customers, right? So you go to your customer and you sell him a dream and you get him to pay a bill up front. Does that work actually nowadays? Is there people trying that stuff? Isn't it the best way to do it? What's your view?
Pretty much if you ask me, given a choice on a wider scale, that would be the best way to do it always. What typically happens today is you keep in mind that you are also competing with people who aren't doing that, right? So you might want to grow. So you might want to grow through customer, cash flows. But there's somebody who is willing to compete and spend 10x and then clean the market before you can actually get there. And I think that actually is the only roadblock that we thought of why we should raise money at all.
So you agree that that any company should definitely look at that as a strategy, as a base strategy, if not so it's not possible for maybe everybody to do raise money, let me put it this way, right?
Yeah.
But it's possible for every company to do the strategy, which is to reach out to customers, and I think it works better when you have enterprise customers. In your case, you've had individual customers, right? So how does it for you?
Actually, I think it used to be true only for enterprise business, that you would go and tell them that you're paying for the money to build this up, and why don't you give me 100% advance? Very funnily, so I worked in TCS, I used to sell to banks. TCS also charges money upfront. They don't really need the cash, but there's a lot of money that they end up charging at the time that you just sign. So, I mean, if the large companies are doing, why not startups? But coming back to your question, clients pay us 50% in advance in our business, and that helps us manage the cash flow. I mean, if I can do that, why not?
Sure.
And just one more thing. If you think about it, the gift-based or advance-based crowdfunding that is there, that's essentially that. People are placing advance order for your product. So today for consumer markets also, people pay in advance. And I think that's something must be looked at.
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying is that in that case you have the product ready, your ability to deliver is there, but you are basically sourcing working capital for running the company through your customers. I think my point was really about getting money even earlier than that to help build the product. Is you go to your clients and say, hey, this is the product what I want to build. You know me and I'm good for what I can do. Some other avatar to prove yourself. Can you actually pay some advance money and wait for a few months and I'll deliver? That's what I actually was looking at actually. Is it because I think that would be the challenge, one of the challenges for people, right? One is working capital. The other is just bootstrapping to get the product ready. I mean, am I raising the right questions or the wrong questions?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So I think the crowdfunding platforms today essentially allow you to do that. A lot of people are going to start and say, hey, this is what I want to build, and kind of give me an advance order, and then I'll go and build it. So I think it goes beyond working capital. I don't think it still finances your basic R&D, but I think it goes beyond working capital.
So let me, since you touched on crowdsourcing and all that, let me ask him what his experience has been. So is Let's Venture really a crowdsourcing, or is there a fair element of offline activity in it?
Yeah, so that's a question that we get asked almost every time we talk about raising money on Let's Venture. And to some extent, this entire concept of crowdfunding is fairly new to India, right? So if you look at other markets like US and some of these markets, they have been doing this for some time. So to that extent, there is definitely some component of offline work that you need to do while the online thing happens. But just to give you a perspective that it's not all offline or it's not all online, right? So we have, when we raised our round through Let's Venture, there are roughly about 18 investors who actually pooled together to fund that round. I think 10 of them we've never met, so even now, right? Maybe we've spoken to about,
which is the good part of it, actually. I love such people.
Yeah, and that's the concept of crowdfunding. I mean, there are people from US, there are people from Singapore, there are people from Delhi. It's not just Bombay anymore. So suddenly, I think the biggest value we found was the access that it kind of spreads out, because physically there are only as many people you can meet.
So how long did it take you?
Less than a month, actually.
Less than a month?
It was very, yeah. So and we were oversubscribed.
Almost advertising for Let's Venture, right?
I'm not getting paid for it.
No, but no, so I've had the experience with Let's Venture. They're very good. They do a very good job. Some take longer. His product probably interested a lot of people. He has all the right words in it. Big data, right? So big data means big money quickly. So that's very well. Somebody has maybe a different story. It might take a little longer time. But yes, generally a couple of months or so. Otherwise, you're not good for it.
Maybe just I'll add a little. And we spoke to, actually before we got on to Let's Venture, we spoke to a few others who got funded before we started the process. And I think our story of 1 month or little less was actually an odd case. So I think we should go in with a mindset. It does take a little longer than that.
Yeah, a couple of months at least.
We were just fortunate that there were some fairly big names who got connected to us, and then
the rest followed.
Key
success. What is the secret of success?
So I think taking the 1 month benchmark is not fair. I think people should keep a fair amount of
Yeah, sir. I think in any business, raising the initial capital is the toughest job that you have to do, and there is no shortcut about it. If you can't do it, then you don't deserve to be an entrepreneur and succeed, right? I'm sorry, I'm being very harsh, but what I'm trying to say is that don't think that it's an easy task, that it should come to you because you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't work like that, right? You've got to work very hard at it. Even the guys who raise funds, the easiest part is to invest it. The toughest part is one is obviously to go raise the money. Third is to take the money back out from them and give it back to the LPs. And then the worst thing is to go tell them, you know what, I told you this, and this is what happened, and you know what, I told you I'll give you this as well. I'm only giving you this, but you still give me some more money to invest out there, right? It's not easy. So nobody gets it easy to raise money. And I think having a good understanding of how to raise capital is as important as knowing your own business. So in fact, today the paradigm has really shifted to, we don't, at least in the later stages, you don't raise money when you need it. You raise money when you get it. You take as much as you get. You don't start thinking, oh, my dilution is going to be so much, so I'm going to get it. At least this is the paradigm. It's a good time right now, so this is the paradigm as of now. It's changed, but anyway.
Right or wrong, we don't know, but that's how we get.
Well, so the maths of right and wrong is working well right now, because so you raise extra money when you're getting it, and you use the money to fuel your growth and fuel the variable that's driving valuation, and then quickly hit the market, because you already knew in the last round there was a bunch of guys who refused because we're getting oversubscribed, and you say, hey, wait, I'll come back to you in 3-4 months, 5 times. Right? So it's a Ponzi scheme in a sense, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. The banks also run like that, right? Banks raise money, deploy that money. Once they build the book, they go raise some debt against it, add that in the market, and then go back to the same equity guys. Hey, you know what? I've gone up now. Put some more money, and I'll go back into the market. Anyway, so that's how financial markets and things work. Was it that you had this success because you had a product already built? What would it be if you didn't have the product built? What if it was for people who have half a story there? Did you have the product ready?
Yeah, we had the product, and we even had first, and we had the enterprise space, so our customer counts are really making numbers. But
you had a customer.
We had a customer as well.
So you had a proof of concept.
We had a proof.
So
we had paying customers.
If you didn't have a proof of concept, do you think Let's Venture would have worked for you?
I think it would have worked, and I've seen it work for a few others. The question is, at what value? Right. So sometimes if you go too early, then how your business is valued as compared to if you have a product and customers. And so the moral of the story basically is how much can you stretch it till you go to them, and then of course if you have customers, have product to show, then it's obviously it's a little more easier to convince.
Okay.
And at better valuations. And if you are at a complete design level,
But
or just
if somebody has a PowerPoint idea, would he get funded as well too?
I think currently difficult. At least from an India perspective, I think we've seen those things happen in the US, but I think on
So who does one go to at that stage, where it's just an idea, and I have a little bit of money, right? I'm just out of college. The max I can put a few lakhs on a piece. Who do I go to?
Again, with 2 experiences below my belt, I would say friends and family, and that's pretty much.
What's your view?
That's pretty much it.
So actually 2 answers. So if you're a college kid, I would say look at the accelerator space and pick up the best. There is a pecking order there, being as high as you can. Start with Y Combinator and go down. I think the best 3 in the world are Y Combinator, Techstars, and family startups. Look at them. That doesn't work, then start looking at India and kind of work on. If you have some experience under your belt, if you think you have a team, then yeah, friends and family. I mean, that's what I also did when I started running out of my own money. I went and raised money for people who could kind of just trust on me because I wasn't ready with the product. So that kind of acted like a bridge until I could go and raise more money from more institutional people who want to see some proof just beyond my face. So 2 different answers depending on where you are.
So we get the ladder forming already. What's clear is if you are early up, you don't have the money, you know what you need to do to get going in terms of looking at the Y Combinators of the world and working your way down on that. But basically looking at accelerators and incubators, and look at those kind of people who can help you out. The other category is the friends and family, and you're actually being kind. You're not putting the third F in there, right? It's a joke around, right? So friends, families, and fools. Fools because they believe you, right? Nothing else.
But we haven't reached that. I mean, we haven't like lost the money. Maybe 2 years ago.
No, okay. So the reason why we put friend, families, and also fools is that people believe you. Your product idea is unproven. Sometimes you might be doing a me too. Sometimes you might be completely out of the ballpark of what you try to build. What is the belief? It's you. So in this world, even at the VC stage, Series A, Series B, whatever, there is this classic dichotomy of schools of thought. One is saying, I'm going to invest in the idea, the space, and all that stuff. And the other is saying, uncle, just the people. If it's a good team, most likely they're going to fail on what they're doing, but they will change around and do something else. And examples like in Mobia Classic, right? What they started off doing and what they ended up doing, very, very different. They took money, they took my angels, ran it to ground, raised some more money, figured out the new model, and you know where they are today. So a good team always gets money. Is key learning. Do you want to add to that? Please?
Yeah, that's a great point for a very simple reason that today the funding environment is great. So if you're actually looking at raising a large amount of money and you think that you're chasing a very large addressable market where high growth is possible and you have the right team in place as mentioned, there are a lot of VCs who write you a check for $500 million. There are a lot of these seed stage deals that VCs are doing right now. Most of them are not disclosed, at least publicly, but there's a lot of stuff that's happening. So if you have a team in place, you have a large market that you're running after, yeah, even at a PPT level, things are getting good.
I think today, at least what I've seen for the last few years, we are seeing a situation where we've had funds being raised at angel level with purely domestic capital. So these are people who probably run rice mills, run shipping companies, run industrial houses, who are looking at this as a product for as an alternative investment product. And there is a bunch of people now who have formed wealth management outfits which are helping connect the two together. So essentially, it's like this. You have these people who are looking for investment options. There are distributors who are collecting the money, getting into funds, and then there are funds who are lending it, putting it to you. So today the ecosystem is building up very nicely. There are a lot of angel funds out there that are at various different stages. But critical is obviously is that most of them would look to you to see you have a product which is demonstrable. So they typically come in after what I would define as the C stage, where you use your money or you use your friends and family's money to build something, to show something. Is that correct to say? Or do you differ with me?
Actually, I can share an experience that we went through in a very similar. So you're quite right. Actually, a lot of people who've been in traditional businesses are going through this entire. They're looking at newspapers and media every day and seeing these startups. And of course they only see the success stories, and then so we had a very interesting experience, and we thought, why not go to some of these? And we got introduced to a few of these people, and we got two completely different sets of people when we met them, right? So one who are traditional, but want to open up and look at the new way of how startups get funded. And the second are traditional who want to come into the startup space but still work like traditional, right? So just to give you an example, I mean, one of them was a business conglomerate based in Singapore, and they gave us an offer of, when we had a lot of discussions, they loved everything we spoke, probably because they had no clue of the domain, I think. But they loved us and everything, and then they went back and they gave us an offer of $200,000 for 85% stake in our company.
Yeah, that's
so, and then we spent like 1 month discussing with them.
So that's why
we have to be careful.
Yeah, so there are people like, for instance, the Kalyanis, I think, or the Kirloskas, they have their own family office called Snow Leopard. Then, there are quite a few of these guys who sort of organize themselves up to do this directly. There's somebody out of Pune called Mantra Ventures. It's one of the guys who made money on technology and real estate. So there are a lot of these guys who are organizing themselves to do it directly. All right. With them come a little bit of pain too, because they also figured the game out. So it's good to find out who's done some deals. You don't want the first one for them to be learning exactly, right? And today there's a lot of data available, right? You need to create your own ecosystems and talk to people and network and get information, because this information is not normally up there in Economic Times to read up. If you talk to 10 people, you'll get it, right? Especially talk to people who got funded, and people are very open to talking and helping each other out. So talk to people who got funded and ask them for help, and they'll help you. So avoid being the experimenter for some of these guys. It's better probably let them channelize it through angel funds, and you talk to those guys.
And the other extreme, as I said, that was one example. The other example are that there are a couple of family funds who are a part of our angel round, who have invested in, who understand the entire ecosystem. Absolutely right. So that you just need to be careful, as you don't be the first. You just need to be a little careful of whom you're talking to.
So I'm going to move. Sorry, go ahead.
Just to add on that, I mean, that area is such a minefield that I could probably talk for the next 30 minutes giving you anecdotes without facts. But one thing that's there is that there is this entire area that we don't end up talking about when we are talking about funding, because funding we all presume somewhere it's going to kind of look at VC funding. But look, that's essentially for extremely high growth companies, companies which are chasing very large markets. But most businesses are not like that. I mean, there will be good businesses, there will be profitable businesses, but look, every business is not going to be like, okay, next 5 years can make it $100 million in revenue. So if your business is not like that, a lot of time it makes sense to be talking to these guys who get clubbed under this entire category of strategic investor. Now the motivation of the strategic investors I have come to understand through various interactions is very different. The strategic investor is not looking for an exit. The strategic investor is essentially saying that, hey, I want to own this. So from day one, he wants 51% stake. So for example, one of the companies that I get involved with almost on a weekly basis, from day one, they have 60% stake. The entrepreneur has 40% stake. And next round, they're saying, okay, you know what, we want to take 10% more. So the entire idea is that why 51%? Because they can consolidate and can show that as revenue of their overall group. So the entire thinking is around that, and you got to be ready for that. If you think that this is going to work like VC market, terms of this, that doesn't matter. So they are very, very different, and a lot of you probably looking at those kind of businesses should be looking at that. But the point I was made earlier that if you want to do background check, that applies. Because some of these guys, if things are not going well, you can soon send booms to your house to become well. Okay, so can work very, very tricky.
You're giving ideas to new services to people. No, I agree. Actually, you touched on a very important point, which is that not everybody gets selected for let's venture kind of platforms. Not everybody would attract that kind of interest. There are these. You have the hype. If anybody's followed Gartner, they have this cycle of hype cycle, and then leads to the troughs of disillusionment, etc. So if you talk to the VCs today, they talk food technology, right? So it's not food technology; it's really logistics technology around food delivery. But that's food technology for you. If you ask people where are they, the next thing they're looking at, they're probably looking at logistics plays, which is a continuation of food technology. You say, now I'm not looking at just technology, logistics around food, I'm looking at logistics around everything else. So first mile, last mile, middle mile, I don't know how many miles, but there are lots of miles, right? So these are the buzzes that happen, and if you're in that buzz and you catch it right, then you know that you have a good chance to be able to get there if you have the right educational background. The wrong things to tell people, but yes, these are all things that people look at when they're investing. The right kind of age profile. So all these things count when people are looking at. Let's say you're not on the right side of these things, right? You're on the wrong side of these things. You're not in the right kind of business either. You can still raise money for growth. I think that is the more interesting part after a point. And I actually want to ask you, not that I'm saying that you were not able to raise money, please don't say me that. But you have created an alternative product to raise money from, to convert it. Could you tell us a little more about that?
So actually, I did not really create it. It's something that's very prevalent in the US, and the lead investor in our case is a US fund. And they said that, hey, we want to do convertibles. So convertibles is actually a debenture, so it's a debt instrument. So it kind of comes on and sits in a debt column of a balance sheet. But this is a compulsorily convertible debenture, which means that it converts into equity at a certain point of time. Beyond that, it does not continue as debt. So effectively, I don't pay any interest. At some point of time, it does convert into equity. The advantage here is that the ratio in which it will convert into equity gets decided at a later date. So this is essentially dependent on the next round of financing. So essentially, if I raise Series A at a certain valuation, at a discount rate of that is the valuation of this. Okay. So the way the VC investor is essentially looking at is saying that, hey, let the valuation be decided tomorrow, otherwise valuation ends up being a tricky discussion. For example, when I made this decision, I had an alternate term sheet from the larger angel groups here in India, and I had a discussion with the other large angel group going on at the same time. The big difference for me was of course, allowing for an upside for an entrepreneur to be earned through a convertible. That was one. Second, that besides it just being a convertible, also the entire terms that I got as part of this convertible loan were far easier. I mean, there is no tag along, there is no drive along, there is no boat seat. So I raised money. I raised money from some good people. We have some common investors. But look, except for participation in the next one, there are no other rights that are given to investors. And that what really kind of made a difference for me, that look, this is money on easier terms. And that's where I lean towards that. I said no to the other investors who chose this.
So it seems to be better on all counts from the equity, pure equity round. So what gives?
So the trick, or let's say small problem that we faced here was that this is a US investor, And they have a rule that, look, I'm going to be X% of the entire amount raised. The rest of the amount has to be other investors. That's how they can look at it.
Okay.
Now, being in US, in terms of getting the other people to come and participate in that round, that was a bit of challenge. But thankfully, I knew a few people, they knew a few people
Sure.
were in. But was that something that I would recommend to everybody to be in that situation? No. 6 months down the line, can everybody do it? I guess yes, because I think those kind of instruments are becoming more common. More and more people are kind of signing up for that. And since the number of people who are accepting those very, very entrepreneur-friendly terms, the number of people who will kind of join that round is just increasing. So I wouldn't be surprised if let's just start seeing that payments to convertible at some point in time.
Okay, so I will try and, so in your case, what I understand is really it's equity.
Yeah,
It is equity, which is convertible right now, it's converted at a later stage. What I thought, when I heard convertible, I thought you were basically a more debt instrument, which converts but you pay interest out also. It's a sort of mix and match. So I will sort of cover something that might be of interest to people, which I have seen happen. And so here's the issue: is that look, somebody wants to invest, but there's a fight about valuation. In a situation like that, so you have maybe even a friend of yours, you have a problem in terms of really talking to him about valuations. He's willing to invest, or it's a person who wants to invest but wants to also have an exit option built in. So how do you handle that? So basically, then what we've seen is that people make a round and say, all right, it's almost like a bridge round, and here is the money, and you could have a coupon in it or not in it, depending on what your commercial negotiations are. And you say, hey, you know what, we'll discover the valuation, give me a 6 to 12 month period, and let's say I can do a discount of 20 to 25% of that value. If I do it in the 12th month, if I do it in the 6th month, I can slice it in between, and I'm also willing to give you a little interest coupon to sort of make it look lower like an interest. And if I can't raise it, then either I'll convert at a very appropriate valuation, 50% of whatever I put to me, or you buy me back out with a 15-20% return kind of thing. You want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, you just described, except for the buyback part,
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that we have done.
Okay.
Right. That's why I guess he helps raise people, raise money.
So what it does is that there are people out there who don't have the same appetite of putting equity money into a company. Says, shut it and I can write it off if it doesn't come through. What do you do for such people? You try and make a product that actually appeals to them. So a lot of people like to see cash coming, so you put that coupon in, right? So otherwise, it doesn't make sense. You may not be taking money. You're probably taking coupon out of the capital that has come. The reason you keep a coupon is gross paisa aa raha hai. There are a lot of people who like to see that. All right. You give them a buyback option. You know, if the company goes down, there is no buyback option. It's gone, right? But people say that it's all right. It's intent, right? If there is an option, you're making some money, I'm the first one out of the door. It's like if you do a VC round, they put liquidation preference. What is liquidation preference? I'm the first one out of the door. It's the same kind of thing, right? So I think if you guys look at it, if there are situations where you're not able to raise money from crowdsourcing platforms, from incubators, it may just be that they don't get your stuff. And you still are good to raise money yourself, do it, and then the world will recognize you, right? So there are ways and means of doing these things, and I think you just have to be a little ingenious about it. Right?
I think that's a big summary.
I don't know for us to talk on and on, so I just wanted to sort of put my questions, which I thought might help you guys understand some of what they've done. So I'd like you guys to ask the questions. If you don't ask questions, then we'll start asking questions. Right? So please. Go ahead.
Question.
Okay, good. You next after that.
He mentioned in between, that it should not, the timing of, going out for, looking out for VC or any kind of funding should be a perfect timing. It should not be too early, it should not be too late. But, being an entrepreneur who's being new in the market, you are, first of all, you have built something for yourself. and at the same time you are also a little insecure that you really don't know whether this is the next big idea which is going to work around, because of course we are self-assured that we are sure that this idea is going to be there. So how do you judge that this is the right time for me to get into that? Correct, the perfect timing. I know you won't be able to tell us what the perfect timing would be, but at least some guidelines on what should be the perfect timing, or to at least approach for funding. Once you have, of course, exhausted the money that you have, and it's that point. But
Yeah, that's what the supply side.
That's absolutely right.
Supply side when the money is
yeah,
run.
the
Demand side.
money is gone, but the point is.
So again, I think you answered partly that there is no perfect time, but I can quote something that one of my boss taught me once, just said to me, which I think became a lesson, is that you never stop raising money, right? It's an ongoing process. So although you can say it's for angels and seeds and CVs, but actually there's no stop to it. I mean, there's no time when one thing stopped and the others. So start. I mean, there's no harm in starting as early as possible, and then do it at a time when it feels right. And that's basically. But if you start it too late, you might not have enough time to, and then you might end up getting a deal or not getting a deal at all. So in my view, at least one of the things we also did is, although we raised last year, but we were talking to everybody since a year before that, and just meeting people and talking to people. I mean, there's no harm. Everybody loves the coffee. Have a talk. There's no harm in that.
Brilliant, yeah.
Most of the times, if you meet investors, I think they have to pay for the coffee as well. So it's fair, right? You're a startup, they're investors, so I think it's fair.
So yeah, bang on, I would say. Like I said earlier, you keep raising money when you get the money. You don't wait for the right time to raise money. So you start today, basically. The gentleman there actually was.
I have two questions here. In case of the crowdfunding, how does valuation work? Because there are a bunch of people coming and they are investing. Okay, so everyone should agree to the same valuation. How does it work?
Yeah, so that's actually a very good question, and I think that was the most important part in the entire thing. So the good thing of crowdfunding is that you only discuss valuation with one person, right? And that's called a lead investor. And I think Sumir asked earlier that is it online or offline? So the offline part of this entire online fundraising is finding the lead investor. So basically you have to identify one guy who's going to lead your round and say, I'm going to be the lead in this, everybody follow me, right? And he's the one who decides the valuation, the terms, everything. You negotiate with only that individual. So identifying that lead, obviously is not like online and you sign them up over a chat or something. You have to meet and you have to convince, and obviously making sure that the lead by themselves are well-known names in the industry. Just if they are investing, the rest will follow them, right? So they understand your domain, or they are known in, so people who are, let's say, at least in our case, somebody who understand the tech and the big data market, or people who understand. So we have some, because we focus on insurance and banking, there was somebody who is from insurance industry who is investing. So obviously people, okay, if he understands it, then fine, then it's okay. So finding that lead is offline. And you negotiate everything with that one individual, and the rest just have to agree to it. If they don't agree to it, they are out of the round. I mean, it's as simple.
We are also in the process of raising funds. Okay, we are in a dilemma right now. What happened is we have gone to an agency and got the valuation done of our company. Okay, and we also have a CA who has done a valuation. Okay, the CA valuation is around 1/9 of the valuation of the agency. We both are looking at different ways. One is the futuristic process, and one is like we are not yet profitable. So he's looking at from different angle. Okay. And what I've read here is in India only, for example, if we are raising at a valuation which is not approved by the CAs, okay, the excess amount which you take is taxable. Okay. And if you are taking the same money from SEBI approved investors, that amount is not taxable. So like for example, I'm going through angel investor or through individual investors, the amount is taxable, and if I'm going to SEBI approved investors, the amount is not taxable. So how do we look into this?
Answer that?
So the valuation number or the price in any market is what a buyer and seller agree upon. So you are the guy selling the shares, and the guy who's investing, he has a price. If once you agree on that, that's a valuation. CA or whoever comes up with a valuation, that's all backward calculation. So typically, the way it works in the seed round today is that they will essentially look at how much money you are looking to raise, and they'll ask for 25% of your company for that. That's pretty much it. There's no more science to it than what I just said. So you're looking for, let's say, 1.5 CR, okay, 25% of your company. You want 5 CR, okay, 25% of your company. Right? So raise as much as you can. Second, well, find a CEO who earns his fee by saying, okay, the valuation is justified.
Let me answer that question. I'm happy to be a CA before I so you actually, there's a logic as to why they put that regulation. So let's say you're a government official, I want to bribe you. So I want to do it by check, right? So you set up a company and I'll fund you and I'll take 10% and I'll give you 100 crore valuation, right? And I'll put the money in it and that's it. So he's got the money and it's an investment. So he doesn't pay tax on it. And I've given him a bribe also. What do you do with that? So the government obviously in its wisdom to kill a fly uses a cannonball, right? And kills everything around it. So in the process of trying to catch this kind of malpractices, almost endanger the entire angel industry. Where they said was, if you're above your valuation, I'll tax you, right? So company is empty, kuch nahi hai. So 10 rupees is 10 rupees. You get 100 rupees or 90 rupees taxable. So that's how it is. Now the challenge of course is in the angel setup, the company actually will have only that 10 rupees, but actually what is happening is at the back end you are building a product, which is where what he says is the real value is what the buyer is willing to pay for it. And hopefully you have more than one buyer to get the real price. Otherwise you don't really get to doing that 1.5 to 5 crore flip. You have to have more than one guy on the table, right? Once you get that done, then you hire the CA to justify that, that is correct. So that you don't get into this malpractice part of it, right? And they will do that. I mean, basically there's a discounted cash flow which is a boon to this world, right? Discounted cash flow is just the boon to solving all of it. I have had this conversation, आपको क्या valuation चाहिए? कर देंगे, कोई problem नहीं. And it's very easy to do. So I think you're getting mixed up with all this stuff. Anyway, movies on
I just have one point to it. We have a slightly different solution to the angel tax problem. Okay, so we incorporated outside India, right? So we are incorporated in Singapore, raise the money outside, you'll be happy, you won't need to go through all of this.
Sir, for a strategic partnership, for a strategic partnership discussion, merger and acquisition, what is the time period that we should be looking at? At which point of time should you tell your investment banker that stop looking at this company, they are not interested in us?
So, are you talking about a joint venture partnership or it's
I think a merger.
Okay, so in any kind of discussion, okay, irrespective of the kind of investment it is, it should not really kind of stretch on. If it's been stretching on, then probably not going to happen. So not to kind of waste time. So when you start off on a process, it's always a good idea, irrespective of whatever kind of business discussion you have, that you put a deadline that if we don't reach a decision by this time, we'll part ways and we'll not see each other for 6 months. Irrespective, I mean, I would do this not only for investment discussions, all kinds of discussions.
Why not? What is the time frame in months' time?
So, strategic investors tend to make their mind up very fast. I mean, yes and no should happen like within a week. I mean, they just want to sleep over it and they come back and they say, I'll tell you that. Same with angel investors, the lead investors cannot make up their mind like overnight, 2 days, 3 days. The documentation is a killer, particularly the Indian networks, it can stretch for like 3 months. But at least if the decision is kind of not getting done quickly, move on. You're wasting your time.
So I have a slightly different take on that. I'll just add to that with a view. What actually happens in many of the strategies is that they have the intent, but not the ability. So what happens is that they are in the business of running something themselves, and now they have to be in a situation of almost like an investing company, while you're running something maybe which is in an adjacent business of theirs. And
and then there are synergies in there. So this whole tussle in the mind between controller and investee structure is where you will find that there's a very quick agreement to go ahead and then a long drawn going back and forth and changing of terms all the time. So it can get quite excruciating in my experience with many of these people. If you find that there is a change of terms happening, you should break quickly because they're not very clear right now. They don't mean wrong, but it's just not clear with what they want to do. It's probably one individual, probably a young skin of the family wants to do it, and he hasn't taken the whole bunch of people along. And the CFO has shot it down internally, and son has no right to do any further, right? And you don't even know about it. So you got to sense internal play, politics in that organization to know whether you should continue or not continue.
Just one more thing on that. See, what happens in any of these discussions is that for somebody who has an intent but is not sure, it is in their interest to stretch out the process because in that they get to see a lot more data points. And therefore they keep on postponing the decision. And that just doesn't work for them. So as an entrepreneur, you've got to kind of put a stop to it and so on.
I have one piece of advice in negotiation of this nature. Control the information on your employees and your clients when you are in such negotiations. So when you talk to them, you give macro data and you sort of keep it at that level and ask them for an intent statement. And if the intent statement is correct, then you get into what is called due diligence. The last thing the due diligence should be introduction to clients and key employees. Because a lot of people are just wishing to hire your people out and with that pretty much kill your business or take your clients away. So that's the last thing you should do in a discussion. Sorry.
Hi, a long question. How do you go about evaluating an investment which is just going to be a part of your particular project of your startup? So I run a healthy food brand by the name of Just Anjam. So I have a healthy food kiosk tied up with Nature's Basket and come up with an outlet soon with some collaborations more. My customers are very rich. Okay, I serve one of the niche clients in Mumbai. So considering it's health food, so a lot of people get attracted towards investing into my business. So there's somebody who asked me to open a cafe revolving around the concept that we are doing. And the sum of the money is not that big enough that I want him to be my strategic partner on board. Also, he doesn't have the capacity or the skills that I want another co-founder. You see, so it's just driven towards a particular the cafe itself. You see, so how do I go about evaluating this, and how do I ensure that I pay him back? And again, considering the nuances of the food business, it's a long gestation.
Let me stop here because the question is really getting long now. Well, you also did a good job of advertising your product. So your business is actually to make health food. He is putting you into a real estate situation where your retail cost comes in. You are doing a shop in shop where you have no retail cost, right? You're sharing gross margin with Nature's Basket.
Right.
Correct. So it's changing your business model.
Correct.
And you don't want to do that because your model is getting a worse model. Let me put it this way. So the best thing to do is if he has interest in cafe, tell him you put up the cafe, I'll provide the food. Right? Oh. So he has interest in putting up the cafe. You have interest in providing the healthy food. You stick to your competence, he sticks to his competence. You want to get him to fund, you tell him to give you an advance, you don't have to give him an equity also, and forget the co-founder bit.
Right.
I'm sorry, it was a very quick cut to the chase answer, and I just took all the stuff that I told you and put it in there.
On the contrary, actually, the reason why we got into the shop in shop bit and a lot of collaboration was because as a startup and considering it's food and investors are not so happy right now to invest in the food space. We initially had that typical QSR way to go ahead, but it couldn't materialize.
No, but that's good.
Yes, I know it's good, but going forward, if I get an opportunity, I would still want to pursue that dream that I started off with. So cafe is always there. It's always there.
Then you do what you were saying.
Okay.
Look, as an entrepreneur, you've got to do what you want to do. Yeah. Don't change your plans to suit an investor. I had an investor come to me, strategic guy. He comes to me and says, "Look, name your price. I love what you guys are doing. obviously I'm going to own a large stake of it. I essentially told him that, look, we are all set for India. I've raised this round, I need investors. He realized that he's a guy with pockets, so he backed off. Then he comes back and says, you know what, open something in Dubai, greater price point, this, that, and we have great presence there, because we have real estate, this, that. Why don't you do that? Look, that's not my focus market. That's something that I may do years later. So I said, no, thank you. Because I'm going to do what I'm looking at. I'm not going to change my plans for investor.
I think you heard the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Stick to your core competence. Sorry, this.
Yeah, hi. In case of an acquisition by a company based out of somewhere abroad, probably US, is there a legality issue from SEBI or RBI? And is there any tax implications in case of a capital gain?
Lots. What kind of question was that?
So I understand that it is a capital gain.
If I make money, should I pay tax? Kind of question.
No, if I make capital gains after 3 years, I think that comes in the long-term capital gain.
No, I'll give you a very quick bite to it. If you're unlisted, there is no saving. Okay, but if there is a foreign investor involved, then you have FDI regulations to take care of, you have RBI regulations to take care of. It can get more and more complicated depending on the kind of structure that we're talking about, whether it is deferred considerations or non-deferred considerations, etc., etc., etc. So it's not something that we can cover in a forum like this. But if you put 10 rupees in a company and you're being bought for more than 10 rupees, there's a capital gains coming. If you are getting bought within 1 year, within 3 years of your investing, then it's short-term capital gain, which is 33% with no benefits. If you are doing it after 3 years, then you are long-term capital gain with the potential of either doing indexation benefits or your investments in long-term capital bonds, etc., etc. But this is not the forum for such questions. Right?
You are very generous. I mean, I would have just put in 3 words: hire a professional. He's given you a lot of advice, and I paid money to kind of get the stuff done. Really, really generous.
Well, I agree. As an entrepreneur, don't even try to understand all of this. It will just take you away from your business. Hire a professional and then pray they know their job.
Particularly in RBI, they want us.
Yeah, I know RBI is a dog about it. Please.
Yes. I would specifically need your advice. A situation wherein you have a product, you have an infrastructure, you have a revenue, you are making marginal profits, you are on a growth kind of a stage, funded by self and debts. And debt is available to come to a certain kind of a level where the target is to go and scale up through VC or leverage whatever is being created through VC as such. So the advice be, should we do it right now and not go for debts because the market is pretty positive, or maybe 2-3 years where we can leave the targeted revenue and the profit, which could be of a good interest and benefit as far as the profitable for the VC. What would be advice? Because
So one point I think just earlier I missed, and we must keep in mind, is that the money that comes either through VC or angel or crowdfunding or anything, it should be seen from a light of not just the money coming in, but what kind of knowledge is coming along with that. Right? So if you look at the round when we raise money, we have a lot of people who understand our business, and actually have in the last few months we've had more CEO doors being opened through these investors who helped us grow business, right? I mean, it would take me a year to actually get to CEO of my customer and get a meeting to show my product, but one email introduction from my senior investor and we get the meeting next week. There is a value to that. I think we should not forget, and I think you need to see that can debt get you that, right? Or if you already have access to your customers and you don't need it, then fine, debt probably is a interesting option, but I think you must look at the money along with the, as they call it, the smart money, right? So it's not just the money to fund your business, but also the kind of knowledge that it kind of attracts around it. And we found some tremendous value in that. So keep that in mind And you could always do a combination of the two. You don't have to do one only, right? You could do part debt, part equity or convertibles or whatever. But I think one of the big pluses of getting funded is getting smart people associated with you who can actually help you grow your business. And I think we've definitely found a lot of value in that. So keep that.
Aditya, you raised CCD from a foreign investor. I've been told it's nearly impossible from a legal point of view. So did you have to do a lot of paperwork? Was it a killer?
So we had to do a lot of stuff for RBI and MCA. So MCA stuff we have to do irrespective of who you raise money from. RBI we had to do a lot of things, and I think in retrospect, if I have to do it all over again, I find it very easy. Because you just need to kind of understand the process, and you need to understand that, look, RBI actually wants you to dot your I's, cross your T's. I have had my filings rejected and fairly exasperated responses from the other side that, look, you need to have stuff like cover letter, this line is missing in your cover letter, salutation is not right. Trust me, I've gone through innumerous rejections, and there's one company that I've invested in. They actually had a notice of capitalization where the amount that you have raised, RBI will charge you 2x as the fine. So if you raise 1 crore, RBI will charge you 2 crores as a fine. It can get really, really hairy. In the end, they came out okay. I think they paid some 15,000-20,000 as fine. But a lot of processes that we just take it for granted, at RBI, you just got to dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure that every deadline is met, everything is tick marked. Also, the other thing I realized was that when it comes to RBI and stuff, a lot of the professionals like your company secretary and all that, since there haven't been that many transactions, they really don't know what needs to be done. So our company secretary made a few mistakes. So when the first call came from RBI, they said that, okay, you are an insurance company or a pension fund. I said, neither, but that's what you declared. So I was caught by surprise. And I said, okay, I don't remember saying that. So it turns out there is some NIC code that you report. And the company secretary also didn't understand our business. And they said, okay, that sounds like it was roadmap. So we went through a lot of iterations because of that. And I think if any of you is raising that, if you're raising money from outside, talk to me. I think it can be a very simple, painless process. I think RBI puts a lot of effort to kind of make it easy. It's just that not that many transactions have happened. And somewhere we think that, okay, filing was I just give it to CS, but you just need to give it some attention.
Case for a fundme.in.
Not a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Anurag, it's a bit off topic, but Peter Thiel recently said I would run away from a company if they had big data in the name. So I just wanted to know what's your view on that?
That's why we didn't raise money from him.
What's your view from an angel investor's perspective, and how would you explain your value proposition?
So my view is that again, I think the point is that
it's more generic than answering about big data and how you saw. How do you sell when you're raising money? How do you sell a vision and a dream? I think that's more relevant.
The point is you sell what you are doing, not what's the buzzword. Right? I mean, we didn't put in big data because it was a buzzword. It was because that's what we are doing. So actually, that buzzwords actually changed so much, and then actually a lot of people asked us, oh, you don't say social, or you don't say what you can do. So I mean, you don't. I mean, if you don't do something, you don't do something, right? So I don't think you should be worried too much about. So I'll give you a small anecdote that happened just 2 days back. So we were talking to one of the investors long back, and they said, you know what, there's this another company in another part of the world. They do very similar stuff. They are doing so much better. See this, see that. And we said, fine. I mean, if you like that better, our model is different. So last week we were talking to them again. They, oh, you know what? Those guys are out of fashion. They are not getting funded for their next round. What you are doing is awesome. And it was like 6 months back. So I don't know if it's a fashion that changes summer to winter, fall, fashion seasons, or so you. I mean, you don't really got to worry about it. I mean, if you do big data, you do big data. I mean, there's no harm shying away. Tomorrow it may be out of fashion from an investment perspective. So what? I mean, I don't think that's the issue. As far as your customers understand what you do and they pay you for it, I think the rest cool. That's the issue.
I think we're pretty much done, right? So thank you guys. There's one instrument that really didn't get covered, which was pure debt, which the government of India provides under a guarantee scheme to the banks. The guarantee scheme to the banks are willing to lend up to a crore against without collateral, which is really awesome. And I know there are people who have been using that. Unfortunately, I am not an expert in that. I haven't helped anybody. I can't tell you what the process is. But you know, if anybody is interested, you can write to Mansi. And unfortunately, the gentleman who was supposed to share with us his experiences, he's had a personal incident that he had to take care of. So she'll be able to help you know more about that. If you guys write to Mansi, she can help you with that. I also know that there are now coming up schemes where people are actually lending money. So there was one venture debt which was in the market called Silicon Valley Bank, which basically used to lend you money when you didn't need it. Which is basically when you do fundraising or venture capital fund, they will put more money along with that. Which is not that you needed that money, but you're saving some dilution. But now there are at least 3 or 4 more people who have come up with venture debt structures which are not necessarily linked to venture capital funding. And they will lend you money based on your business plan. And you know, and interestingly, those 15% kind of coupon rates, which are not too bad, they're given the kind of high risk profile that is there, when you go up to a crore, 2 crore, etc. So there's a lot of stuff like that coming up in the marketplace, and I think you guys should track such options also. I'm sure they will be available for the right companies. Over to you, Mansi.
Any other questions anyone has? We wrap up? Yeah? So can we end it with a very, very good round of applause? Thank you, Swami. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Anurag, for taking your time. This is a small token of appreciation from TIE. We make a small donation to an NGO on your behalf. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that's it. I just have to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.